Hello. Doodle-doodle-doo. Welcome to a very spooky, or not so spooky, episode of Pictures Without Pictures. Today we are discussing the 2018 movie Halloween. Reese, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm tired, but I'm good. So if I yawn randomly, it's
I
an
just
apology.
assume that's standard because
Be
of
issued.
the way I talk and how boring I am as a person. It breaks
Wow.
my heart when it
It
happens. But
took
I try not to talk about
literally
it.
30 seconds for you to throw in a self-deprecating joke. Congratulations.
Thank you.
the
I mean,
record.
I would have done it faster, but I'm just not very good at managing to do that kind of thing.
This is becoming a bit messy now. Let's move on.
This is like the slasher of my heart. So this is the spooky October version of Pictures Without Pictures. I believe this is. We did do Gladiator at the beginning of October. That's just because we had already delayed that
It
one
was
by.
mainly because we were delayed, yeah.
But yeah, this is our Halloween movie. It's called Halloween. We will be doing another spooky movie next week, and I will reveal which one that is at the end of the stream. Reese will probably not be surprised because I've mentioned it a bunch of times recently. Anyway, today we're talking about Halloween and Michael Myers, who I keep shortening to Mike Myers, but a quick Google before the start of the show made me realise that Mike Myers is
an
actually a real
actor.
person. He's an actor.
Yeah, it's the actor.
And
He
so I
plays Austin Powers.
I should probably say Michael Myers instead. I did not know that bit of trivia.
It's funny now because you'll get one of the jokes they're making Baby Driver, where one of the characters goes to buy Michael Myers masks, but he buys masks of Mike Myers instead, and he's like, "No, he meant." Like, no, he said Michael Myers. This is Mike Myers.
Oh, I don't even have my notes
It's a
out.
really dumb bit.
Yeah. Just realised I don't even have my notes out. Reese, what are your overall impressions on this movie?
Fucking. I don't like this film. I don't like it.
Reese does not like this film.
Because it's. We'll get into it. But
Actually, sorry, first of all,
general-
I should mention, I forgot to say, the idea behind this was that Reese has seen the original Halloween movie, and I have not.
I've seen the first 3 or 4 originals.
Yeah.
Which helps with the context of this being a reboot.
Yeah, it's a soft reboot, isn't it? And I've never...
It's a retcon of the first movie.
Oh, really?
It takes the first movie and retcons the ending.
Oh, dear.
And changes it, which I'll explain. at
Okay.
some point.
I've seen no Halloween movies, and in fact, I think I should go on record right now and say, as far as horror movies go, I've seen Insidious, and I've seen a movie where a baby was the Antichrist. And it really shouldn't count, but I'm counting it. I've also seen Shaun of the Dead, and I was very young, and that movie is meant to be funny, and I was terrified the entire time.
It does have its spooky moments, to be fair.
Yeah.
Although it's somewhat offset by Queen playing at the same time. But there you go.
But yeah, that's literally the extent of spooky movies I've seen. I'm really not a spooky movie kind of a guy.
Whereas I have seen, obviously, the original Halloweens. I've watched probably all but a few of the Friday the 13th
You're like a
films.
connoisseur of spooky movies.
I've seen a lot of more modern films. I've seen, obviously, the new It and It Part 2 that came out. What else did I watch recently? There's some good horror movies on Netflix I've watched. One recently which called House of the Witch, which was quite interesting. Obviously, a Saw movies, but that's not really horror, that's just gore.
Also, you've not seen... I mean, no, wrong way to start that sentence. They're not movies, but you also very much enjoyed The Haunting of Hill House, and you are either finished or currently watching Haunting of Bly Manor?
Finished now. Very good. It was very good.
There you go. There's a quick Pictures About Pictures on that series. So yes, sorry. Let me get back to you. Your thoughts on this movie?
So my issue with this is it feels like they've kind of taken everything that's been learned about horror and what made it good back in the 70s and 80s and took a big shit on it, basically. they kind of didn't do anything that made the old ones good. All they did was... It feels like this film is very much like, guys, we brought Halloween back. All these other horror franchises are bringing their guys back, so we're doing it too. Because if I remember correctly, Halloween was one of like the original slasher movies. It was one of the first to do it.
Yeah.
It predates Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Which I originally thought was the first one, but no, Halloween was in the 70s.
Psycho Would Psycho be a
I want to say
slasher?
probably Psycho. Psycho, yes, I'd say would be a slasher. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because yeah, slasher connotates to a horror movie where someone kills people, like like
Yeah, I guess it
yeah.
would be then. I mean, I haven't seen it, but we were talking about it a bit back in uni, and apparently people were literally fainting out of fear in the cinema because nothing like it had come out before.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And now you go back and watch it. We did watch the scene that apparently made people faint, and it was just like, lol.
That's just a testament to the times and everything
Yeah.
and cultures as well, like, and just the advancement of technology in general, for sure. Like all that stuff you could very easily see in a film that's not even a horror now.
Yeah.
So
So here's my impression on this movie. Ah! Turns out I spook easy.
yeah.
And I'm not necessarily saying it was a good movie, although I particularly enjoyed it a huge amount, but it definitely got fright out of me. Maybe not so much in the final act, but definitely in the middle when he had just escaped and he was starting out with his murders.
Yeah, see,
my heart was
that was one of the
pounding during
things
a
that
few
was
of those
good.
scenes, which
Yeah,
is
that stuff was good because it was a good start, and I was like, if they keep this up, then it's gonna be great. But then they kind of just trailed off
yeah.
of the main point of Mike Myers. So a good contrast is how they implemented him into Dead by Daylight as well, the game, in that they took the idea of him stalking people and made it his whole thing and like his mechanic of the game. His whole and why he's different to your standard one. I say Jason is a pretty like basic bitch when it comes to a slasher movie.
He's Friday the 13th.
Slasher
Right?
movie monster. Yeah, Friday the 13th. So
Cookie
he's pretty
Monster.
standard. He just turns up and kills you. He's,
Right.
Or like he'll pop out of somewhere and kill you, like, or he'll hide behind something and then pop out and kill you. Like, there's nothing. But the idea of Michael Myers is he stalks and he hangs around and builds up the tension, and then he gets you, and then it's like, okay.
That didn't happen a lot.
No, and that's why I don't like the movie, because they ruined what makes Michael Myers, and what makes Halloween a movie, because it's about the tension.
I mean,
and
at one
is
point
he dead?
he
Is he
literally
not?
just
Is he
starts
good? Is
walking
he
into
not?
people's houses and killing them for
He
no
does.
reason.
He does that, but he doesn't kill them for no reason. He just takes their shit.
Yeah.
And then if they do something to, I think if they're in any way, I'm trying to remember. In the original film, it's a similar kind of thing. He like breaks out of I think, so I'm mainly doing this for your benefit, but just as like sort of descriptor to compare as well. In the original film, he kills his sister when he's a little boy. He's then put away to be in like a psycho ward or whatever you want to call it. He's taken away to a mental hospital. That's the word. He then goes through like multiple doctors, to which he lands on the current doctor in the movie, who basically says there's no cure for him. He is just pure evil, and goes on this whole tirade. He's like, I've never met anyone like that, like anything that would describe pure evil, but that man is it. Obviously, many years go by of him being there. He then escapes, and obviously kills a few people on the way to get to where he needs to. And then the entire movie is him stalking his relative, Laurie. And she sees him like just standing in areas and just being like just existing in areas and stuff. But then he starts killing the people that relate to her or like have interacted with her.
Yeah.
And then to this final climax where she walks into a room and all of these dead bodies are strewn about, and also the tombstone of his dead sister is also in the bedroom.
Oh wow.
And so people are just strewn about everywhere, and it's a brilliant build up of tension just to that climax, and then which builds up to like the final confrontation. And it's fantastically done. He doesn't attack her until that very, very end, but he's constantly there. And it's played around of like, one of the things I like about those old slasher movies, and Halloween is more so for that, is it's a case of when are they going to jump out, because there's so many, there's long periods where you don't see them, but you know they're there because the tension's there and like the spookiness is there.
There was one scene like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's like this in the original. I imagine the difference is, in this version, the character who was looking for him had a shotgun. But it still built
Mm.
tension. This is towards the end of the movie when it's I don't remember any of the characters' names. You'll have to excuse me, but the original character, the older lady,
Laurie.
she's Laurie. She's looking around for him, and she's very tactfully set her house up so she can close off rooms that she's already been in, and so he can't jump out at her from behind or anything. And then she goes upstairs into the attic with a room with. First of all, did you really not see this coming? You put all those mannequins in the attic. You didn't see how that was going to fuck you over later, but I think that scene built tension. Maybe not
Yeah.
as good as the original. I haven't seen it, but I think it built tension.
It did a good job.
scene.
That scene I did quite like because I think it was the original. It was the original duo. It was the original.
Yeah,
Predator and Prey kind of deal. And they did that quite well. I think because there was definitely because I think it went on in a way that wasn't very good though. Like it.
yeah, I know what you mean.
It was very obvious what was happening. It was very obvious he was going to jump at any point. The point of the original movie was you don't know, like the character doesn't know they're going to get jumped out on.
Yeah,
And it kind of like puts like kind of a hitch in that tension.
yeah,
If the character has knowledge of it, it's not as interesting because it's like
yeah. Fair enough. I mean, that's what I was
It's
thinking about
expected.
while I was watching the movie. They're referring to him as Michael.
yeah.
To be fair, at this point, I didn't know that they also knew what his. I thought he was just a random killer in the first movie, but I was thinking like maybe he's annoyed that like they keep almost humanizing him by calling out his name when they're looking for him, if you know what I mean. Whereas before he was more scary because of he was anonymous, but I guess that's not how that played out. I'm
No,
not
it's
sure.
not. He's the whole point is that he's related to them,
Gotcha.
which is why he's going after them because he's just basically trying to kill his family.
So is he related to
For some
Laurie at
reason.
all, or was she one of the?
Yes. I forget the specific details, but I believe, I can't remember the specific relation, but yes, they're related. That's why he goes after her in the original.
Gotcha.
Um,
So yeah, I guess going through the movie a bit then, when it opens, first of all, I think the asylum was very tropey. There was a lot
Yes.
of tropey stuff in this movie, but I think a lot of horror movies are tropey, aren't they? That's part of the you enjoy the familiarity of them and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, it's the idea of especially a movie like this. They're trying to recapture like what it was back then, by like modernizing it somewhat and changing it, but also trying to keep some of the tropes alive.
yeah,
Yeah, that scene was odd
yeah.
for sure.
When they described Michael Myers as pure evil, even though they're like professional. Well, it doesn't necessarily look like the kind of place you would expect to find in real life for people like that, but in the movie they're presented as like real doctors and stuff, or maybe not doctors, but scientists of some sort. Like having them like say something's pure evil instead of like going into the mental like side of it. That was. I said that set up Michael Myers quite nicely, but that also does feel a little bit cliche at the same time.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I did like the little nuance of tie your left shoelace, because you'd be surprised what sets some of these people off and all that. But yeah, that scene where the reporters go to try and have an interview of him, you're just like, why would you?
Yeah.
You're just asking for it at this point.
It's so odd that that's the setup that gets them there, though. It's so strange because they're such throwaway characters as well. Like they're not
True.
explored. They're explored like briefly to give context to why they're there, and then they're killed off. And
The
it's
thing
like,
is, I think they were very much a means to an end, because you've got to remember this is a soft reboot made for people like me who've never seen the original, and to me, I did get a lot of important exposition from the reporters.
it's
talking
almost
about him.
it's not so much a soft reboot like that. It's almost like a hard. It's almost like a. It's like a retcon sequel to the original.
Right.
Because the idea is, so in the original film, in this version of the canon, he's recaptured and put back, and then 40 years later, so obviously Laurie is obviously still feeling the effects of it, which is obviously why like the sheriff knows about Michael, because obviously he dealt with him back then, and why Laurie's so weird about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just feels like it feels strange that they're there, and it just feels like it's just a person for someone to kill.
I
Just
knew
give
they were
them
going to die
some
the
level.
entire time. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way these people live to the end of a movie.
Like, give them some level of personality, and then
Yeah.
immediately kill them.
Yeah, they have like no motivation to be doing what they're doing. Like, why are they so
Yeah.
obsessed with this guy besides just
Yeah.
reporting and journalism? There's
And
not
the only
much to
reason
them.
for him anyway is to get the mask, which is
Yeah.
fucking pandering as well.
Yeah.
Like, the only reason that's there is pure pandering.
I was thinking,
It's like,
surely
guys,
any, like I said, not really sure how this facility works, but surely any doctor or therapist or even scientist worth their 2 cents wouldn't like be like, yeah, sure, show him the mask he used. Yeah, that's probably fine. You can bring that with you. Why not? Like, that felt a bit weird. Like how they shoehorned the mask in. That was definitely, that stuck out to me a little bit.
Because the mask in the original was kind of just a thing that just sort of happened, and then it became so iconic as a result. Like, it was
Yeah.
just a Halloween mask that he picked up and put on.
There were a few
to cover
things
his
like
face.
that where it felt like it went outside the movie, where they were pointing at it and being like,
Yeah,
you know,
and that's
it didn't feel natural.
It didn't feel like they were trying to make a good horror movie. It felt like they were trying to make some fan service, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the right word for it. It did feel fan servicey. Like I said, Michael is presented with mythological reverence throughout most of the first act of the movie. Like, it's like, oh my god.
Well,
It's Michael Myers.
that's pretty good to a degree as well, because that's kind of done in the first. I mean, it's done more subtly and more interesting through the Doctor's character, who I think he's just a really interesting character in the originals for sure. He's in the first and second, I believe, and maybe the third. Yeah, I think he's in the third as well, because he almost dies in the second, and he's about in the third one. But yeah, they play it off like it's like he's pure evil, and there's like, because I believe his obviously it is Michael, but I believe his actual like horror persona is called the Shape.
Right.
Because he's just the shape of a man who's
Yeah.
evil, I think is the idea. But he's the shape of a man, but that shape is pure evil.
Yeah.
And I just like, it's an interesting idea they throw about of like how no one is truly evil apart from him.
Yeah.
Which is like, there's definitely like a weird mysteriousness to it, especially as the fucker doesn't die ever as well.
I know,
Good
right?
Lord.
That's the question I've been meaning to ask you. Is he supposed to have superhuman strength and like regeneration?
In the
shit?
original film, he gets stabbed like 2 or 3 times, pretends to die, gets back up, and then gets shot with a full revolver, falls out of a window, and then disappears.
Right. So that scene when Laurie fell out of a window and then he looked back and she was gone was a callback.
That
I felt
was
like it
a
was.
shot-for-shot recreation of him falling out the window.
I felt like that was a callback when I was watching it, but we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Yeah, he does in this movie. He does get like shot in the shoulder. He gets. I know he gets shot in the head at one point, doesn't he? And he's fine. Like, I don't know.
That was a bit bullshit.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And there was something else as well, wasn't there? Oh yeah, he got fucking hit by a car and then he's just fine afterwards.
Oh yeah, I think he gets hit by a car in the original as well.
Okay, one thing I'm gonna have to point out, by the way, is because I haven't watched a lot of horror movies, I'm extremely naive. I think in my notes at the point I was like, oh my god, they just straight up killed him, huh? Nope. But I think that's why this movie was effective for me, because I have not seen a lot of horror movies. I'm not used to a lot of horror tropes and stuff like that. I actually think it's maybe better that way. Like, if I'd seen this movie after watching loads of horror movies, I probably would have just been like, oh, this is kind of shit. But I think because I'm not familiar with horror movies and stuff like that, I got something out of it that maybe other people didn't. And that's not necessarily good from a critical standpoint. Like, the movie definitely has issues. But I guess at least it spooked me. Not that I was thanking you while I was watching that and getting spooked.
So I'm looking up just how much he gets attacked in the first one. I'm curious, so I'm just gonna quickly look it up.
Okay. While you're looking it up,
Yes.
I'm just going to say I liked the quote when the reporters go and talk to Laurie, and she says, "Michael Myers murdered 5 people, and he's a human being we need to understand. I'm twice divorced, and I'm a basket case." I was just like, "Yeah, tell him." That's kind of reminiscent to the way we see a lot of things being treated in media in real life. Of like, oh, you know, so and so. They make certain people sympathetic that shouldn't be, and they villainize certain people that shouldn't be villainized. The media, but let's not get into my opinions on the media and news and stuff like that, because we'll be here all day with me ranting and raving. How's it going? I've run out of vamping without moving on in the.
It's okay. So, just so you're aware as well, by the way, there's like many like different timelines of this, by the way.
Right.
So, there's just the normal sort of the night he came home is the original 1978.
Oh, it's not even called Halloween.
No, it's called Halloween, but
Oh.
like the idea in the timeline is that's the night he came home, and then the whole
Okay.
murders and that happened, and then it goes into the 4-6 timeline where he hunts for Jamie, who is a descendant of his relative or something. I think that's his niece, I think.
Right.
And then it goes into the remakes, which they get a lot more bloody and gory. In 2007, and then you've got the final timeline, which is the current timeline that they're doing now, where they're doing 2 more films after the one that just came out
Oh, are they?
like 2 years ago. Yes,
Yeah, I was
it
gonna
was
say.
going to come out this. It was coming out this year, this month.
I was
but
gonna say
obviously
the
got
ending
delayed.
was kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get there when we get there, but yeah.
But yeah, he gets. Let's see. He gets shot a bunch. He gets stabbed.
This is in the original movie, yeah.
Yeah, this is the original movie. So let's have a look. Yeah, a bunch of people die. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, so Laurie stabs him when they're being chased with a wire hanger and his own knife, which then he falls down. He then gets back up again and attacks her, which he rips off his mask and he's like, "No, put the mask on." And then Dr. Loomis pops in and shoots him 6 times, and then he falls off a balcony.
Yeah, they don't show us, or they mostly don't show us his face to kind of like big up the whole point that he wears a mask and we don't know what he fully looks like. But we did see a side view of his face, and they made his face look as scary as the mask is, and I feel like that detracts from the whole point of the mask.
Because he kind of just looked like a normal dude when they pulled his mask off in the original.
Well, yeah. Oh,
he was
right,
just
yeah,
a normal
I see.
dude,
Yeah.
and he was just like,
Yeah.
and put it back on.
Yeah.
Like his focus went like stop. His focus went from kill Laurie to, oh, my mask is off, better put my mask back on.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Which then allowed Dr. Loomis to pop in and be like, "Oi, Michael!" Bang, bang, bang. Which is a great scene, by the way. It's a fucking great scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the original actor who played the Shape was the same one who did it in the new one. So
Yeah, I was wondering.
which was
that.
cool. I think it was him and obviously Jamie Lee Curtis reprised their roles.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I guess this is jumping ahead, but I am curious, how did you feel about them turning the Doctor into a villain, of having him...
That pissed me off.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were going to go the same route they did with Dr. Loomis. I fucking loved Dr. Loomis's character. I thought it was really interesting in the first film and the sequels. But yeah, he just sort of came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. And at that point, I was wondering if they had killed him and the rest of the movie was just going to be him becoming the
That's
next
what I
killer.
thought as well. I
Yeah.
thought they were going to do some sort of whole, like, the evil passes on thing and
Yeah.
try to do their own original thing. And I was like, that's a bold move and interesting. But then he was okay, so I was like, why then?
Yeah.
What's the fucking point?
Yeah. It just felt
It was
like...
such an odd... You could easily remove that entire fucking part of
Yeah.
him in, and
it would be
it's
the
fine.
same movie, and it would be better.
It would be the
Yeah.
same exact movie, just it would be less bullshit.
Yeah.
But like that's what I mean. A lot of this film was just bullshit. Like it felt like they didn't understand. Like I get obviously taking creative direction and like going different routes and stuff with this kind of thing,
Yeah.
trying your own thing, which I thought they were going to try and do. But no, they just did a really bad job of the old movie. They just redid the old movie, but did a worse job. Like they didn't understand the tension of the scenes. They didn't
Yeah.
understand what made Michael Myers scary.
Yeah.
They didn't understand anything like that. There was no subtlety, which was the entire point of the first movie.
So you're saying you're excited for the next 2 reboot movies?
I'll watch it because I'll be interested to see what they do.
Yeah.
but it just seems like they're just going for fucking spectacle now, and it's like
Yeah.
nobody wants that who watched the original film.
Yeah, suspense, not
And
spectacle.
exactly,
Seems
that's
like
the
an
whole
obvious-
point of these horror movies.
Yeah.
And you know shit's going down when the soundtrack kicks in.
Yeah.
And the Michael
I was
Myers
gonna
soundtrack
mention
is
the
fucking
soundtrack.
amazing.
I was gonna mention the
changed
soundtrack. Did they change it?
No, I think they kept it more or less
Yeah, I
the
was going to
same.
say, because I actually recognised it, so I must have seen it from some referential stuff in media before, or heard it, I should say. But I liked how, like, not necessarily just his theme, but a lot of stuff was very kind of retro and 80s sounding.
Yeah.
When the suspense was happening, that was nice.
But I just like the music when he's chasing people. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it's he might be still behind you, or he might not be. It's that kind of music. It's fantastic.
So we meet the family, the younger family, not long after the reporters failed to get anything out of Laurie and then go off and, well, we'll come back to them in a minute. But yeah, so we meet the younger family, and I wrote down that the dad talks about trapping mice to murder their whole family. He later breaks a mouse trap and hurts himself. Foreshadowing? ? But I don't think it was necessarily a huge prediction that he was going to end up dead. He was very much murder bait. Whenever
I
you saw
mean,
him.
most people that aren't the main character are murder bait, unless it's a Scream film. Scream films are fucking brilliant for that stuff,
Oh, okay.
and I haven't watched Scream in fucking ages. I need to rewatch it. But Scream's brilliant for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They did. Was it? I want to say, was it Scream or was it another film? I forget what it was. But like, you do not like, aside from like a couple people that are obvious, like, you do not know who's gonna die.
Yeah.
Because for one, you don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
Because the entire point of Scream is you don't know who the killer is. It's one of them.
Yeah. That does sound cool. We should do that at some point for this.
Yeah, Scream's brilliant. Scream's less horror for sure. It's just more, I guess, psychological.
Yeah.
It's all psychological. And obviously it's because the entire point of Ghostface is that he knows everything about them and uses those things against them to kill them.
Yeah. So,
Which, brilliant. Love Scream.
So I wrote a little bit about there's this scene where oh my god, what's the granddaughter called again? Vicky? No, that's the babysitter. The granddaughter's called something. Well, either way, the granddaughter and her friends are talking. They're walking about and they're talking about Halloween. I found that scene. The acting in that scene wasn't great. The conversation didn't feel very natural. But the perspective of questioning what makes a few knife murders so horrifying in this day and age kind of mirrors what younger people ask about the old horror movies. Like, why were people so afraid of Psycho?
Yeah.
It was just some dude killing people. Nowadays, a lot of horror movies tap into supernatural stuff or spectacle. Cough, cough.
Because it becomes more fear of the unknown or
Yeah.
fear of, being violently killed.
Exactly.
Tortured and all that.
And you could write a whole think piece about how that's indicative of how younger generations maybe have, like, they've been normalized to some horror stuff, but also, like, you can't really empathize 100% with horrific events unless they happen. And the way we see news and stuff as well, you see that kind of stuff happening every day, so it's like, oh, what's so different about this when it's always horrific when stuff like that happens and all that kind of thing. But I think the movie kind of, I took this as like a clever comment in the movie of like, oh, they're making fun of people who don't know why the old horror movies are scary. But then this movie does kind of betray itself on that front, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, well, we can't just have Michael Myers killing a few people because that's been done before. We have to make it more of a spectacle, like you said earlier. So I think maybe it betrays itself a little bit in that scene.
I mean, I'm not saying the original wasn't a spectacle. I mean, the way he set everything up for Laurie to walk in was quite obviously spectacle, but it was a build up to the spectacle, and the spectacle wasn't the entirety of the movie. It was the climax, which is what you want in one of these, like the final confrontation between the killer and the survivor. Yeah. Which is always how, it's very tropey, but it's always how these horror films go, and it's great. But I just thought of a good example of a scene that's fantastic and builds tension brilliantly in Halloween, in the second Halloween. The entirety of the second Halloween is they're in a hospital.
Oh, that sounds like a nice place to be.
Oh, it's a brilliant film. And there's a point where the power gets cut out, and you're like, "Oh shit, he's fucking with the power." So the security guard goes out, and like he hears like rustling in like a bin. He looks in, like a cat jumps out, and he's like, "Ah, jump scare, gotcha."
Yeah.
Then he goes into the thing, because I think you see like a very subtle like. There's a point where you see him walk in to an area, and he kind of like disappears like behind a door or something.
Yeah.
And then a little bit later, the security guard goes in there to like sort the power out, and you're like, "Fuck! Well, he's dead now. He's all alone. He's in a dark area." But then he goes and turns the lights on and goes back, and nothing happens.
Oh.
And you're like, "What?"
Oh.
but he killed him, man. And then he gets him later, and it's just, I think that's perfectly how you not only are you building up that tension, but you're keeping the audience guessing at the same time, and so you're like, when then, like,
Yeah.
which I think is something that was brilliantly done.
That's a cool
in all the
subversion
horror
of
movies.
expectation, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's done so perfectly. This is like, it follows Michael Myers too closely. The idea is he's just a thing. He's just a thing that turns up.
Yeah.
But you see, it's almost like you see behind the curtain. You see the
Yeah.
magic happening. You see him walk from point A to point B.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas before you'd be at point A, and then you go over to point B for a bit, and then he'd be there, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, where'd he come from?" You know, which is the entire, like, there was a level of mysteriousness and spookiness to that, and that it was supernatural. It felt supernatural,
Yeah.
and wasn't actively said, "Oh, it's supernatural." It was just like, "Fuck, how did you get here?"
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. There were a few times when I was wondering, like, is there going to be a moment where he pops up somewhere where he couldn't feasibly come from? But I don't
No,
think
there's
that
always, yeah, they did that in the original as well. It was always like a case of it was feasible, like
Yeah.
he would turn up somewhere where he could be, arguably. I mean, somewhere a bit weird, like turning up in the back seat of a car that was in a garage in someone's house.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
one was a bit like, how did he get in the car? Or did she just not lock the door?
Yeah, true. So the fake jump scares start happening at this point because I think it's a cheap way of building tension.
Yeah.
First of all, one of the guys jumps out from a hedge and goes, "Ah, no, you're an asshole." That's so 1,000,000%. I don't even watch horror movies, and I know how overdone that is. But then the next jump scare was just when it cut to Laurie and she was at a shooting range, and it's just like gunshot, and then suddenly it's like, oh, you realise where you are. That one got me.
The issue,
annoyingly.
jump scares. The only reason jump scares work is because the tension's working.
Right.
And using them as a way to build tension is fucking terrible, and so cheap.
Yeah,
Like,
of course. The
you
gunshot didn't
use
get
a
me
jump
at all,
s-
obviously. I mean, I don't know who would even
Yeah,
say
but
something like
but that was because you weren't expecting it, not because the
Yeah, true.
tension was building and you got scared.
Well, I
because
did
thing
say I got
happened.
annoyed by it. In
Oh,
minutes.
yeah.
I was like, oh, like that was
If
pointless.
you're getting annoyed by a jump scare,
Yeah.
then clearly you're not into the movie. Like,
Yeah,
you're not immersed enough in the tension.
I was
or there
like,
is
well
no
done. I
tension.
jumped for no reason. That was just kind of
Exactly.
my fault at that point.
That's what I mean. Like in a moment, like the scene I described, obviously with the cat and stuff as well. You're in that moment. You're in that with the character, and so you could see it as like you're opening, like you're looking around. You open the thing. Ah, there's a cat. Fuck. You know, that's you in that moment.
Yeah.
Which is how tension should work. You should be in that moment so that it's almost as if you're reacting to it like the character is.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Which is why it makes it scary, because you're in it.
Yeah. I kind of like the dinner table scene where Laurie crashes the party, and then she can't stop going on about how anxious she is about Michael Myers, and although that does seem to contrast with her later state of being where she's like, I've been waiting for him to escape for ages so I can fucking kill him. But I guess she's just more worried about her family at this point in the movie. I think they really captured the essence of a chaotic character, changing the tone of a scene.
Yeah.
And like situations like that can happen in real life, sadly, and stuff like that. Of just like, oh god, this person's in the room and they're kind of a wild card. As unfortunate as that can be sometimes. But I think that scene captured that very well.
Yeah, it was an exploration of the character, because it's interesting because it's the idea of effects of trauma on a person,
Yeah,
and something as horrific as that for sure. And knowing that the reason that all that stuff happened is still knocking about,
yeah,
and oh no, he's coming after me again,
yeah,
or like that fear of like he could be coming after me again.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, if he
and
followed
yeah,
his initially established characteristics, he probably would have been following her immediately, right? Like you said, he stalks people and he goes after people who's related to him.
hmm
So it was kind of weird that he took that detour first of all, but I guess maybe that was just on the way to her. I don't know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
at first, though, it definitely seemed like random killings to me.
Mm. I mean,
Um,
that's part of it. It's kind of the point. Like, the killings usually happen because it means to get something.
mm,
So like he went, typically he would have because like because he went to the mechanic as well, and the same reason he went and killed them to get the overalls, to kill the people to get the mask, to get the overalls because that
Gotcha.
was his original look as well.
yeah.
So again, pandering. Um, but yeah, in the original, it was a case of like he killed this guy because he had a car,
Mm.
so he could get there, and then he just used the overalls that were there and changed out of his hospital stuff.
You wouldn't steal a car.
And then he kills people, and then from there on, I'm pretty sure he doesn't kill anyone else. Like no, I'm wrong. No,
You are wrong.
he attacks the people in the car when he's escaping, where Dr. Loomis is in the car as well, because Dr. Loomis leaves the car, and then to find him, and then he sort of gets around him and then attacks the nurse that's still in the car and then steals the car.
Don't forget when he's in the neighborhood in the mid kind of act of the movie, he kills someone with a hammer to get the knife, but then he just kills someone else. I don't think he's killing them for any particular
Yeah.
reason.
He just kills people randomly, and it's like,
Yeah. That definitely made me like Roma. I was like, when he killed the person with a hammer to get the knife, I went, okay. But when he then went into the next house and just shoved the knife through that lady's throat, I was like,
the thing is as
What?
well with that, they basically copy that scene to a degree, except he doesn't kill them. He just walks in, takes the knife, and leaves
yeah,
because they're completely unrelated to anyone or anything.
yeah. Also, hang on a minute. I've lost my notes. Oh, there they are. Well, I didn't lose my notes. I lost my brain. We're now at the point in the movie because we did kind of like jump ahead a bit. But if we go
Yeah.
back to the bus crash, and we don't really know why the bus crashes or how that happens, but it's not really.
Apparently,
important.
Michael attacked someone, and
Gotcha.
it caused some chain of events.
Not that surprising. I think we're just led to kind of assume
Yeah.
that. But yeah, don't. I said out loud, "Don't go in the bus," and then I wrote that down because
Yeah.
it's like the very horror movie thing of talking to the characters on the screen. I was like, "Don't go in the bus."
Don't go in there. He's behind the door.
And then my next note is all in capital letters. Yo, that kid fucking died.
Yeah.
When he snapped that kid's neck, like yikes!
Yeah.
Straight up kid death, huh? Okay. And then so that's when the police become aware of the situation, and I wrote down the very stupid question: "What are we gonna do? Cancel Halloween?" And this movie's any indication, and yeah, maybe you should have.
Yeah.
So it's not long before we see the journalists at the gas station, and I went, "Oh dear, they are journalists that we saw at the start of the movie, and they are at a gas station. I feel like this is their end," and sure enough, it was.
Yeah.
But
There it was.
I'm not going to shortchange that scene because I thought it was horrifying.
Oh yeah.
It was, yeah.
But again, completely portrays how the character works.
Yes.
I mean, well, not entirely. I mean, the idea obviously is because they had something he wanted. Like they still played into that of like that he killed them because they had something he wanted,
Yeah.
or needed or whatever. But obviously that obviously led to pandering. But I think it was good because it did show off like just how terrifying he is and how strong
Yeah.
he is as well.
Yeah.
It was a good indicator for that, I think.
Yeah.
So it was a good setup.
And these are the
yeah.
first characters we're really familiar with who die in the movie as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was. I was very much like, oh god, as like that stuff was happening. It's like I said, low tolerance for spook.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was a creepy scene in my opinion. Also, just like the method of killing, like the guy with his fucking unhinged jaw, like yikes. So that was that. Um, I like how the sheriff who was originally who was said to be on like on call that night when he was originally out
Yeah.
Myersing. He only ever refers to Mike Myers as the thing or that thing. Like he never refers
Yeah.
to them as a human being or anything like that, or like as a him or anything like that. He's just that thing. Kind of
Yeah.
nice little nuance there.
Yeah, because I believe Michael Myers kills his daughter, I believe, in the original.
Mm.
That's probably why.
My-
One of Laurie's friends is his daughter.
At this point, I'm just going to start reading out my notes to you because you're familiar with the movie, so am I, and the way this podcast works, the idea is you watch along with the movie. So I guess I should say this is the point where he starts walking from house to house.
Yeah.
He did a random murder, huh? Didn't kill the baby though. He's not such a bad guy, eh? Okay, the second random murder was just funny. Because she's like, it's almost parody of horror at that point, where she's like, oh yeah, I'll close the windows, thanks for letting me know, all this kind of stuff, and you see him walking around the side, and then she's like looking out the window, like almost spiking the camera as he walks up behind her, and then just like it was so
Yeah.
pointless and weird,
Yeah.
and just like
Yeah.
no build up, and just like I
Yeah.
said, the very opposite.
It
of
was
what you
he
want from
was
Nightmare.
if this was a Friday the 13th film, it probably would have been better.
Yeah.
But because it was Halloween, it just wasn't as good. Because Friday the 13th is he just kills everyone.
Well, I mean, you've got to consider as well, I'm someone who doesn't know the context of the difference between Halloween and Friday the 13th, and I still thought it was dumb, so...
Pretty much just the execution, I think.
No, I know, we've
particular-
talked about it now, but, like, back when I was
Okay.
watching it, I didn't know. And,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
I just, and at the time, I just thought it was dumb. So even if it was a Friday
But,
the
like-
13th movie, I'd be like...
But
"That's dumb."
basically think one is mysterious and like just appears. One will literally walk at you in a menacing manner.
Yeah. Fair
So-
enough. So when the babysitter and the kid stuff's happening, can you leave a door open a crack? What kid has ever said that? Leaving it open a crack is the scary option, right? Wouldn't you agree? You either leave the door wide open or you shut it. You don't leave it open a crack. I was like, that's going to come back and bite us in a minute. And it didn't really. Like, maybe with the closet, but no. That was weird. I did like that kid, though. We never really learned what happened to the kid. I assume he just ran away, right?
Yeah.
Because we
I
know
assume so.
Michael Myers isn't afraid of killing kids at this point in the movie, so...
I mean, well, the entire point of one of the movies is him hunting down a kid to kill them. So.
I see. We swapped to the party scene with her granddaughter, and she breaks up her boyfriend, who I don't think we ever see again, do we? Do we ever see
No.
him?
Can I just say, that entire boyfriend, the entire point of him was so she wouldn't have her phone. So
I know,
she
that's
couldn't
what I
get a
wrote down
call from
here.
Laurie, and it fucking pissed me
Yeah,
off.
it was so obvious.
Oh, that angered me so
'Cause
much.
I've heard people talking about this, of how do you deal with the phone problem in modern horror movies, because in old horror movies, part of the fear of it was like, you can't get through to anyone.
Yeah.
Like, either the signal's down or the phone gets destroyed and you don't have any other phone in the house or something like that, right? Or the wire gets cut, basically. But nowadays, everyone has a phone in their pocket. So it's almost funny to watch horror movies try and get around the fact of you can't get lost in the woods if
Interesting.
you've got a phone in your pocket.
Interesting thing about that, though, the film we watched the other night, A House of the Witch. As soon as they basically, obviously, they get locked into a spooky house, and a witch starts killing them off one by one, basically. The interesting thing about that is they all pull out their phones, and apparently it's just it's set up so like the area is like a complete dead zone, so they can't get any signal at all.
Yeah, that's how a lot of movies apparently do it. And
it's a bit of a cop out.
Yeah.
But with the idea with that one though, it was like, oh, it's a witch, so she's just manipulating the area, so they can't
Fair.
actually do anything.
I
So
mean, if it makes sense
kind
for
of
the
sense.
movie's law, that's fine. But it's just something I kind of like look out for. And the second he put her phone in the punch bowl, I was just like, all right, that's how we're doing this, huh?
It was dumb.
And then when she argues with him, well, first of all, I said that's how they deal with the phone problem, capital T, capital P, capital P.
Yeah.
This movie, and then she leaves her phone. I don't care if your phone's broken. You grab your phone before you walk away. Like,
especially
if you're a
as
teenager at a
this
party, come on.
This was 2 years ago. It's probably resistant to
Yeah.
fluids to some degree.
Yeah, exactly. You take
Ugh.
that phone as you storm off. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a Luddite. But then you wouldn't even have it in the first place. So yeah, we go back to the babysitter, and I'm aware of the babysitter trope as well, so I kind of knew she was going to die. Also, they almost fuck, so yeah, they go and die. That's another trope. But yeah, when Vicky
Never fuck in a horror movie, you'll die.
Exactly right. And
Especially if it's Friday the 13th.
I wonder what that trope is about. I wonder if it's just a quick and cheap way to get the viewer invested in the characters of like you want them
for Friday
to
the 13th,
and then they die and you're more upset.
Yeah, for Friday the 13th, it's more specifically because of Jason. The idea is he drowned and died in a lake because the counselors were off fucking.
Right. Interesting.
So he goes around and kills them because his mother told him to.
And maybe a trope just built off of Friday the 13th, even though...
Because the whole trope is built around because his mother basically is like... He hears his mother when he's going around and murdering people.
Yeah.
And basically she's like, yeah, they were fucking while you were drowning, so you should probably kill them as revenge.
Ah, I see.
So, yeah. That's where that comes from.
Gotcha.
Friday the 13th. Plus, like, it can get away with stuff like that as well because it's a high, like, rated movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking
it's a mature rated movie.
I was thinking it was more of a psychological thing of like sex can be like a comfort thing, like where they're comfortable with each other, they're not necessarily super worried about their surroundings. And then obviously you can play that against them.
Oh yeah, for sure, like most vulnerable and all that.
But yeah. So I'm gonna get back to reading my notes now. Okay, but when Vicky did the fake out thing asking the boogeyman to leave, I was having heart palpitations. Damn you, Reese. And then the next note is, oh, the double fucking fake out. He's actually there, motherfucker. So yeah, that got me. Even if it was... Okay, that was pretty good. I'm just like, you're my guide, you're my Sherper into horror here, so I don't know what's good and bad, but like...
I forgot about that one, I'll be honest.
But yeah, that definitely got me. But then I laughed when Laurie showed up and and he's in the window. I know that's like a famous shot, and that they're recreating.
It's the reverse of the famous shot.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because in the original, she looks out the window and he stood in the garden, like just staring up at her.
So they play around.
It's literally a reverse of the shot.
They play around with
cool.
role reversal.
I really like that. That was really cool.
Yeah. They play around with role reversal between the two then, because I guess in the first movie he's hunting her, in this one it's almost like she's hunting him. And you said they recreated the off the balcony onto the ground and then disappearing thing shot for shot, but just it's reversed. So I guess that's something that they did a lot in this. And with the therapist talking about how sometimes the victim becomes a victimizer later on, maybe they were trying to like hint towards, well, what if Laurie's, gone a little bit too far off.
I imagine that's one of the reasons I will be interested in watching the other ones, because it'll be interesting to see if she becomes that,
especially now she's
because
been vindicated.
they do that stuff in the originals as well.
Yeah.
With Jamie, in that I think she kills someone, like say, oh, Michael Myers is gone, he's dead, it's all good, and then like Dr. Loomis walks up the stairs and he sees Jamie with a bloody knife wearing a mask, and he's just like, no. And he's like freaking out. Oh, it's brilliant.
That sounds good. I like that the boyfriend got killed off screen. Like the last thing you see of him is him picking up a knife and saying, oh fuck this, kind of thing, like he's gonna have to go up and take on Michael Myers. He's not gonna win. They don't even bother showing you what happens to him. The next time you see him, he's pinned to a wall with a knife. It's like, yep, that's what happens.
Pretty strong knife, that, gotta say. Held him up and everything.
Yeah, I know, right? I feel like that should be less about the force of being pinned to a wall with a knife and more about the effects of gravity after you're stuck to a wall with a knife, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, it should
like,
work
a huge dead weight on a knife.
Yeah. Who's Oscar again? Because I wrote that his death was just comical.
Oscar?
Oscar's
the guy that was with the granddaughter. He was just in the
okay, yeah. So yeah, when he tries to kiss her and she's like, no, piss off.
Fuck that. By the way, fuck this movie for pulling that shit constantly. Can I just say, what a fucking dumb plot points they did that shit with.
How do you mean?
It was so fucking. I just didn't like it. I didn't like what they were doing at all. And like this whole thing of like, oh, she's a damsel. Oh, we have to kiss her and stuff. And then she's like, no. It was dumb. like I can kind of see what they were doing with it, but
It didn't feel like
it
a
was
well
done.
executed feminist message.
No, no, it wasn't done very well at all. It was done very cringily.
Yeah,
And
no,
I was
I
like,
get that.
guys,
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah. You know, when that stuff's done right, it's good. But maybe, like, I
Yeah.
mean, some of it was okay. Like, for instance, the role
was
reversal.
shoehorned in.
The role reversal
Mm.
with why do I keep forgetting her name? Laurie. Where she's not necessarily scared of dying, she's just more protecting her family. So when she's scared, it's on that front. But she's more of a badass in this movie rather than a victim. She's more of a hunter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the granddaughter stuff didn't really come across as well, I guess. But yeah, his death was funny when he was just talking to Mike Myers in the background. I thought at that point, because they had just mentioned something along the lines of what is it that makes him kill, would he ever spare someone? And I thought if he spares Oscar, because Oscar's just a poor nice guy kind of a dude, I'm gonna fucking flip. But no, he did end up getting murdered, so I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was funny. The movie wasn't supposed to try and be funny at that point, but I thought it was just funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I didn't write any notes for a few scenes there, because then she runs away and she actually finds help. I was not expecting that. I thought from this point on
Yeah.
it would be about Mike Myers chasing her, but no, pretty quickly she does find help. Initially, when she was knocking on the first door and nobody answered, I was like, wait, is this the same neighbourhood he did the random murders in? And was he setting up an elaborate trap in that when she asked for help, there was no one around because they were all already dead? That would have been cool, and that would have made
Yes,
sense.
if that was the entire, if that was the setup, then I would have completely forgiven it,
Yeah.
because that would have been amazing.
But nope, just no one's
But
home
no.
in the first house, and then she finds a house party, and they're all like, "Oh no, we'll hug you." And
Yeah, this film is the reason it can't build tension is because it's so stop and start.
yeah,
It's like, oh, they found help. Okay, that's good. Oh no, we're going again. Oh, but they found help. Like, no, that's not how you do a horror film.
So yeah, at that point, the police pick her up, and they go looking for Mike Myers. They don't take her home first. They're like, "All right, let's go looking for Mike Myers."
Wait, did he go looking, or are they taking her home and they just run
No,
into
they
him?
say to her, "Look for him out the window. Let us know if you see him." And then when they see him,
I don't
they-
think that's actively trying to seek him out though. I think they're just on the way and being like, if you see him.
But when they see him,
let
they
us know.
don't drive away or like report.
But
it
then they
and
run him
take
down, yeah.
yeah.
And that was so fucking stupid as well.
Yeah.
And then the events that led after that were also fucking stupid.
Yeah. Well, first
that
of
was
all-
the point of the movie that I was checked out by, as you can tell.
Well,
by
like I've said, I'm slightly
as
more-
I can tell from the crazy levels on my audacity right now.
Well, as I've said before, I'm very naive when it comes to horror and tension and stuff. And at this point, I was like, "Oh, they killed Mike Myers. That's interesting." And then my next note was, "Oh, no! First of all, I said, I swear to God, if a Mike Myers they just hit is some dude wearing a Mike Myers Halloween costume, I am done with this film."
That happens in the first one. And
Really?
It's brilliant. It's so good. Because there's a dude dressed up in a similar costume, and then Dr. Livingston's like, he's there, get him! And they're like running down. And he walks out into the middle of a road, gets hit by a van. The van swerves into a tree, and then explodes. It's fucking brilliant.
Amazing. But I thought here, if they run him down and then they demask him and it's not Mike Myers, I was going to be like, "No, I'm done. I'm out." That's dumb. That's how I felt anyway.
That would have been a great setup for the tension, though, because then Mike Myers could have popped in and been like, "Hey,"
I
and then
guess,
killed
yeah.
the doctor, and then she would have ran.
It
And
was
that would have been
more.
much better,
I would have
think.
been done in the sense of like stop with the fake outs, because you know how I said about the double.
Oh
fake
yeah,
out earlier.
there were a lot of fake outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, in the original film, they only did it, and there was another one where a bunch of people were dressed up as Mike Myers,
I see.
and they all were just like trying to freak him out,
Yeah.
because this was the second film, I think, or something like that.
My next note
Third,
is,
I can't remember.
oh, his therapist is nutty. Another trope.
Yep.
Myers sure is a resilient fellow. Don't go into the goddamn woods, which never actually got paid off. She just kind of arrived at home all safe. By the way, she would have had to run past the corpse of her father, which would have had an effect on her, but no, she just ran past him. She didn't stop and go, "Oh no, Dad!" cry, 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 or anything like that. She just ran past him.
And then we're like, "No, we've got to move, no."
Yeah, no,
You know,
just
that pretty
It's fine.
thing,
It was fine. Just ran past him. I mean, I know the guy was a dick, but come on.
Yeah, don't be an asshole in a horror movie either.
Yeah.
Kills.
So it's at this point Mike Myers. So he. Oh, they have that whole thing. Okay, I kind of rushed ahead. They have that whole thing in the car where the therapist turns out to be like, "Ooh, like this is how he feels when he kills someone," and then like he sticks her in the back with him, and then they drive off. And then he wakes up and just fucking kills the dude anyway. Pointless. And then she runs and escapes into the woods. So he takes that car and he drives it up to the other cops, who have that very buddy cop moment of like, "Oh, you're gonna feel sorry when these characters die." Didn't feel sorry when the characters died. I didn't have any emotional investment whatsoever. And he stomps one of the dude's brains out in a single kick, and it was at that point I was like, wait, is he supposed to have superhuman strength? So
I think he's supposed to be like unnaturally strong, but not like crazy.
I think it's at this point the movie takes a bit of a nosedive in terms of realism, because when he pulls up to the house, he's carved one of the guy's skulls out and turned it into a fucking jack-o'-lantern. Did you catch that?
Yep. That was dumb.
That was dumb. I was like, come on. At no point has he shown, what's the word, like, glee in what he does. It's just weird. It's weirdly cold and just like.
I mean, he the reason he does that is to like scare certain people. Like I said, he does it in the original ones.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, to a degree. Like he has people like strung up and stuff.
Gotcha.
There's no sort of glee taken out of it. I think he's literally just trying to traumatize other people with it.
But a jack-o'-lantern specifically, and he doesn't necessarily wave it at anyone either, feels very like self.
Yeah, it. Like I said, I don't think they understood the character at all.
Yeah, I was just like, first of all, I laughed. I was like, oh my god, and I was like, wait, I shouldn't be laughing at this point in the movie. Like, that's a bit weird. Although that being said, I didn't consider it a necessarily awful or bad movie until you voiced your opinion. So again, I'm just using you as my Sherper here.
We'll watch the original at some point. Together. Yeah. I think would probably be the best way.
Oh yeah, that was my other point about the jack-o'-lantern. My note was, dude turned a guy's skull into a jack-o'-lantern. Where did he find the time to do that? Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say it would be a good idea if we watch the original together at some point, so you can see what I mean.
Yeah. And then, how did you feel about the final showdown in the house with the three generations side by side?
Oh god.
I'm taking that as not positive.
I don't know, because
I think some of it was alright. Some of it was good.
Some of it was alright, yeah. Some of it was very, like, tropey, though, for sure.
Yes.
Like,
I mean, even that in
it's
itself
annoying
was
as well, because it
stop-start.
reminded me of a good horror movie, which is disappointing. There's a very similar kind of... I don't know if you've heard of or seen A Quiet Place. You probably haven't seen it, but if you've
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's got dude from The Office and his wife in it. His actual wife.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the entire premise is monsters have got like monsters appear that have got super good hearing and basically hunt humans down.
Yeah.
So then the entire movie is like, that's a brilliant film for building tension, by the way. It's fucking brilliant. But like, so there's a lot of like just quiet nothing in a lot of the film. So like any sound is explosively loud.
Yeah.
Because of how quiet the rest of the film is. And yeah, there's like a cellar area.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me of a scene from that, which is very similar kind of thing. Also, a lady has a baby during that as well, while monsters are walking around. And good lord.
Yeah, that's...
It is all of the tension.
Try staying quiet when you're having a fucking baby, yikes. Yeah, that sounds like
I mean,
a
if
good
she
movie.
doesn't, eventually they set off fireworks to offset her screaming.
Ah, gotcha.
To like, be like a louder noise overtake her noise.
Yeah. But yeah, back to this movie, I was gonna say, I think the point which annoyed me about the final showdown was she opened her gun cabinet and they had so many guns. And I was just like, okay, so you've got 3 people here versus 1 guy. He's got a knife and you've got a fucking a warehouse of guns. It doesn't turn into an action movie, as it shouldn't have. But like, I don't know, like, it just felt, and they did use the guns to decent effect, but like, it just felt, at one point you have to be like, how much can one man do? One man with a knife versus all these people with guns. It felt very like, oh, you're supposed to still be afraid that they won't be able to deal with him because he's the mythological Mike Myers, you know? And I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there was definitely the fear factor there for the survivors, or two of the three of the survivors, but like, yeah, I was like, just, you have so many guns, use the guns. That was my note there. And I think that's because at one point, like, literally he's creeping around up top and it's just the mother and the daughter, and this was before she picks up a gun, and they were just looking at the floorboards, and I was like, what are you doing? Use the guns. I was just annoyed.
Yeah, it was. I think it was set up for some character development crap, but it was just done really terribly in a situation that just it didn't work in.
Yeah. It would have been scary if she didn't have guns, but that wouldn't make sense because she said she's been preparing for 40 years, so it's just a big mess.
Yeah. I think the entire premise of it was just done very badly.
Yeah. But...
Like, the fact that Laurie was prepared for it kind of ruins the entire movie.
Yeah, I guess it kind of does in a way. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, it's cool that you have the tables flipped of Laurie hunting Michael Myers. The actor has nothing to do with this movie. But but when you have that, you can't necessarily have the horror and suspense that you had before. And I think they tried to create that by having her still have something to be worried about, which was protecting her daughter and her granddaughter. But like, they didn't necessarily work.
I think what would have been better, because I think what they were trying to do was have Laurie become the new Dr. Loomis, in that he was hunting Michael Myers in the original ones. Right. Where now she's hunting Michael Myers, and then the flip side being that Michael Myers is going after the granddaughter, right, or the daughter, and then the flips, and then that's the flip around, like the idea that like history repeats itself kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then it just went off on a weird thing that just, it didn't work.
No.
I feel like if they'd done it that way, it would have been a lot better, because it's always been a generational thing. Like, they've done that in the original movies and stuff, and it was really interesting how they did it.
Yes.
But like, remake the original film.
Yeah.
But everyone's older and the roles have changed, apart from obviously Michael. And I think that would have made a much more interesting movie. See, like, how Laurie's like rising to defend a horror that she had to deal with, defending the horror that she had to deal with. I think that would have been brilliant.
Yeah.
Unless they were setting up for her to be like a descent into madness to become the new, the new Shape.
Which, by the way, I was going to ask you about. For one of the final scenes where she strikes him from the shadows and says, "Happy Halloween, Michael," and you just see her face and then she lunges from the shadows. Is that a direct reference to a scene from the first one? Because it felt like it. No?
Nope.
I feel like I've seen that kind of thing from somewhere before. I'm not sure where though. Huh.
Laurie and because she's stalked for most of the film, and then like the last, I want to say 10 minutes is when she actually has to deal with him.
Yeah. Like
10-15 minutes. So she doesn't deal with him for like most of the film, and then suddenly everyone's dead and Michael's here. Like, it's just so sudden. So she's super traumatized. And I think like that film made Jamie Lee Curtis's career. Like, that was I think that was the first like notable movie she was in. Halloween. And rightly so, she's a fantastic actress. With some range apparently, but yeah, I think I did like her in this film as well. I have to say, I think she played her role very well.
Yeah.
I think it was like the Mark Hamill of horror movies kind of deal. I think, where she had to play like a role that in a movie that ended up not being that great, or people didn't think that was that great.
Yeah.
I mean,
she's definitely one of the best parts of the movie.
For sure. I'd like to hear her opinion on it, honestly, like comparing the two. I think it'd be interesting from her perspective of being like playing the both roles.
I got paid.
Well, like, I mean, but that's not something you just come back to without having some sort of connection, you know?
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, that's the thing with movies, right? It's like, it wasn't necessarily ill-intentioned. Like, they probably really wanted to make another really good Halloween movie.
For sure. They just missed the point, I think.
Yeah.
Which is upsetting. Like, it definitely, like, it wasn't like that. Obviously, there was the pandering and stuff, which I think they just wanted to get in there as like a service for like the fans have waited 40 years or whatever. Like, because I think Rob Zombie did some reboots, which I haven't watched, but they're a lot more bloody, a lot more gory. I think Laurie gets like stupid injured after the first one, and so in the second one it's like the start of her just getting patched up, and she's just like covered in viscera.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched the entire films. This one, the only part I've actually seen was that. But yeah, I think these were definitely guys that like wanted to make something, like, from something they'd heard of. Like, it feels like these guys didn't like either hadn't watched the original films or thought they knew enough of it and enough of like the horror genre to be like, yeah, we can make a film out of this. Like, knew the context and we're like, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
Without any of the sort of like the feeling behind it and the emotion and the tension and what makes those horror movies good.
Yeah. Well, they had the music and they had Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yes.
What more do you need?
And they had the original Shape.
Yeah. What more do you need? My final note here is we don't get confirmation that he's dead. Boo!
Yeah.
Because, I mean, come on. You can't just roast him alive and then have him not be there. Like, fuck off.
Him not being there is, it's basically saying, yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah.
That's that. Though it's not done as well as being flat on your back on a lawn and then you look away and look back and he's gone. That's very different. There was a fucking inferno going on in that cellar.
Yeah. Like, that's my problem. He's a superhuman at this point. Like, how does he survive that?
Like, they just made it too unbelievable, I think, which doesn't make it scary.
Yeah. And it feels like the whole movie was for nothing as well, because the whole point of this movie was this time we're gonna get him, and then you go through all that and it's like they didn't.
Even in the original, like, even though he could take all the damage, it still felt like you could stagger him or make him stumble and stuff like that. This film, whenever there was a moment where he like paused or where he stumbled, it didn't feel right because they built him up to be this unstoppable machine.
Exactly, yeah.
Like this unnatural thing that just wouldn't stop.
If they had gone with a moment where the daughter shoots him in the head and then like he actually fucking died, that would have been like really cathartic in a way. Like, oh, it's finally over. Like, or maybe just have him get roasted alive and that's fine too. Like, I don't know, like have him
do what they did in the original. Have him like, because she shot him on the stairs, right?
Right.
And then he like fell down. Have him fall down the stairs and just be like pretend dead for a while. Yeah. And then have him just stand up again.
Yeah.
And do something, you know?
Yeah. I feel
like the last hit in and like maybe catch one of them off guard as they're leaving or something and kill them. Like just appear like he does. I think that would have been great.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like if they do, I can't see where they would go with sequels for these reboots. Like, at this point, he's basically superhuman, right? Are they going to lean into that aspect of it? And if they do, that's not going to be a great Halloween movie, I feel like, you know? I don't know. I don't know. I can't say I'm particularly thrilled about the idea of having sequels.
Feels
like they're trying to milk it.
So I just remembered, so obviously in the first one I told you how he gets shot a bunch, and then obviously falls out a window and gets stabbed. I just remembered in the second one he gets even more punishment than that. He literally has an entire firing squad of like 10 dudes shooting at him, and then falls into an abandoned mine shaft. Like, and he also like gets hit by a car, he gets stabbed a few times. No, second one, I'm misremembering the second one because in this unless I'm like getting my films mixed up. I might be getting my films mixed up, but no, because that's the third one. That's it. That's the one with Jamie. Is the firing squad one. In the second one, he literally fucking explodes. Dr. Loomis, because they managed to blind him somehow. I can't remember how. And so like he can hear them moving, so like he's swiping at them whenever he hears them.
Yeah.
And then basically they're in a room because they're in a hospital. They're in a room full of like oxygen tanks. So they light them all up, and then Dr. Loomis fires his gun.
Yeah.
And then the entire fucking thing explodes. But then at the end, you just see like a shadowy figure walking through on fire. He's just carrying on. It's like,
yeah, when they had that shot of a house burning, I thought he was going to appear in the doorway or something. Like, yeah.
Dr. Loomis also survives that as well, though. So.
Okay. So that was Halloween, 2018. Overall, it did me some frightens, but
Did you spookums?
yeah, it definitely had some spookum moments. And I guess I enjoyed the thrill of being scared at points, but I can definitely see how this didn't necessarily live up to the expectations of the original Halloween movies. And like I said, I really don't think they should do sequels for this. Like, if it had ended with him dying and it was just like a one-off, I would have been like, sure. But man, like, I can't see anything they would do in a sequel that wouldn't just feel like they're milking it.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just a grump and a grouch.
I there could be ways to do it. It's just it would be interesting to see if people gave them decent feedback about this and were like, hey, like, I'm actually curious. How much did this make? So I'm gonna compare this to like the original one as well.
I'm gonna see what the overall rating is for it.
So Halloween.
Rotten Tomatoes. I just realised.
So the newest one got 255 million.
It's got a 70% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is okay. I think that's earned. It had good moments,
So the annoying thing about this is it made a lot of fucking money. Wait, did it? Hang on. I need
Back
to
in 2
double check.
seconds. Vamp for me.
Vamp. Okay, so I'm just looking at this up now. So the original made a lot of money. Good lord, compared to how much was spent on it. So $325,000 was spent, and it made 47 million. So that's
I'm back.
pretty good. They actually put more. Hello.
Hi.
I was just saying. They spent just over $300,000 on the original one, and it made 47 million. So that's pretty good. And worldwide was 70.
Oh damn.
The second one was a lot more spent on it, but didn't do as well. Made about 10 times back. But in terms of the newest one, let's have a look. So 10 million budget, and it made 159 apparently. Domestic.
I see.
So comparatively, that's less. It made less money than the original.
Oh, okay.
But it also comparing it to the last Halloween film that came out, which is 2009, it is 5 times. It made 5 times the amount.
Yeah.
And Halloween 2, which is what was the last one that was made, was 15 million budget, and this one was 10. So
Gotcha.
there you go. So made a lot more money.
So
also, its opening weekend was 76 million. Yeah, people obviously they're gonna keep making these because they made a lot of money.
yeah, which is a shame. You should never make movies like that for that reason.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
I understand why you would, but don't. Like,
Uh-huh.
if you really care about making a good movie alongside that desire to keep the franchise going because it's a moneymaker, then fine. Have a publisher side who wants to make the money of it, and like the director and all that side of it who actually cares about the film. But don't just milk it for the sake of milking it. Like,
It's a pain in the ass trying to watch these movies right as well, because 3 of them are called Halloween.
that's why I
The
took
original,
a screen cap of
you've
the
got
one on
the one
Netflix, and I was like, this one.
Yeah, you've got the one from 2007, which I think was directed by Rob Zombie, and then you got obviously the 2018 one now.
Yeah. Okay, so next week, Reese, is still Halloween month. So we are going to be travelling back to the far-off time of 1984 to see the 18-rated movie A Nightmare on Elm Street, because I've been curious about that movie for years. Ever since I saw
like
the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode, which spoofed
Which
it.
one? Which one's that one from? What year was it? Sorry.
1984.
1984. Oh, is that actually on Netflix? Is it?
It is. I checked before this podcast started, so we'll be watching that. I assume it won't be too spooky because it is old.
Yeah, it won't be that spooky. The old ones, like, typically, like, they have their moments, but
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen the original of this, so this should be interesting. I've seen, like,
Yes.
various ones, but I believe this one won't be too much. This one won't dive into the dream stuff too much.
That's fine.
I believe, because the original ones, I think he's just a kid killer, so.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I know that the third one is called Dream Warriors because that came up on my search. I was like, that sounds like it goes places.
Dream Warriors. Aaron recently spoke about on Game Grumps,
Yeah, that's what
and
brought
I
it
don't think
back
I've
to my
watched that
attention.
one, and it sounds amazing. So
But yes, we'll be watching A Nightmare on Elm Street next week, so if you are watching along, feel free to watch that for next week's episode. Final thoughts, Reese, before we wrap this up?
I think the film definitely, like, I think what you said was good. Was good in that it was. It definitely tried to do something, but unfortunately, that fell short quite a lot. In that it didn't really capture the essence of what makes a Halloween film good, and just what makes Michael Myers scary, and why it's interesting to watch. But they definitely had some good points in it for sure. There was definitely stuff that was done well. It's just unfortunate that there wasn't no like complete follow through of it. Obviously, you're never going to make a perfect horror film. Especially in this day and age where I feel like modern day horror films are probably the hardest thing to make in the world, like, and make them good. But they took a try, and there were good points in it, but for the most part, I didn't enjoy it. But I mean, from a fresh perspective, if I hadn't watched it, maybe I would have enjoyed it more. But I think because I'm so my idea of a good horror film is if it needs to have a good atmosphere and build good tension, or else it's just not good. And I think even if I'd watched it without watching the originals, I would have seen that and been like, no, I didn't get into it. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think it was all right, but definitely lots of space for doing better, which hopefully they may adjust in the new one. If it made so much money, maybe they'll have a better budget, maybe they'll have more time to do some certain things. I mean, they have more time to do stuff now as well because it's been delayed.
Yeah.
You know, it's delayed till next. And it's called Halloween Kills.
I see.
And then the
It
one after that will
certainly
be
does.
Halloween Ends.
Oh.
Until the next reboot,
And
apparently.
then after that, it's called Lightfall. Little Destiny 2 joke for you. For me, I would say closing thoughts. I'm still not sure I'm a huge Halloween. Halloween. I love Halloween. I'm still not sure I'm a huge horror movie kind of a guy. We got like halfway through this movie, or I got like halfway through this movie, and I was like, oh shit, I've got like another hour to go. Like, that's how low my threshold is for scares. I was like, jeez, kind of a thing. But it's fun. It's just very like, I felt like shaky at the end of a movie, and that's not necessarily because I was shaking in my boots like levels of scared. It's just because it gets my tension up, and I'm not sure I love that feeling so much. But anyways, next week will be Nightmare on Elm Street, and we'll see how that one affects your boy. I hate it when I refer to myself as your boy. I don't know why I do it, but I did it. I did it just then. Did you hear me? I did it. And there's no taking it back. It's happened. Everyone heard it. So yeah. Reese, we still haven't come up with a suitable outro for these podcasts, mate.
Oh my god, dude! So something to look forward to for this film as well. This is Johnny Depp's film debut as well.
Is it? Oh.
That's interesting.
Oh, okay.
See if we can spot him.
Yeah. I to this day I still don't necessarily know what that dude looks like because I don't watch behind the scenes bullshit, and well, I say bullshit. I don't watch behind the scenes stuff or interviews and stuff like that usually. And usually in movies he's very made up to look a certain way.
He is very made up.
So usually when someone's like, "That's Johnny Depp," I'm like, "Oh
he's actually a pretty handsome dude. And he's a pretty awesome dude too. But yeah.
Cool. For a while there we thought he was a bad guy, but it turned out that he wasn't, so at least that's as far as I'm aware.
The other party was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway.
That's as far as we're aware. We'll see you next week for Nightmare on Elm Street. Goodbye.
See you there.